I decided to start with my annotated bibliography. This is because it was the building blocks that led up to my academic argument, so it made sense that I would mention it first. Um, Before I even wrote the annotated bibliography, we started by writing um, a thesis statement that then you had to approve in a conference. And once that was approved, I began also researching for sources that supported that argument. And once I had those sources compiled, I started going through each individual one and um, analyzing them and annotating them. So, in order to do this, I began first by giving a brief one sentence summary of more or less what the source was discussing, and then it went slightly more into depth, kind of highlighting each key point that was discussed into the in the annotation in the source, so that you have a good idea just through the annotation of what the source is actually discussing. And then I would finish by discussing kind of who wrote the paper, which organization published it, and how credible it is, just to make sure that it's up to the academic standards. And finally, at times did finish by seeing how it connected to my other sources, if it may have like filled in the gaps for information that was missing in some of my other sources. Um, and Formatting, MLA formatting is something that I did struggle with in this class. Um, I do believe I did improve, and I'm starting to get a little bit more of a gist with it. Um, I made sure to or chronologically put the alphabet for the annotated bibliography and to do the indentations correctly. So then for my academic arguments, before beginning my academic paper, I already had my thesis statement and annotated bibliography. This gave me a general idea of the information I was working with and what the main focus of the paper would be. In addition, I had already completed the synthesis matrix, which meant that all my evidence was neatly organized and ready to be synthesized into my body paragraphs. These extra steps taken before beginning the paper made the process a lot more efficient and structured. When synthesizing the research, I made sure not to use basic and repetitive language and transitional words. Even though the incorporation of peer revision in this class was helpful, I believe that it was the most beneficial for this paper. This is because my partners were able to pay attention to small details in MLA formatting and punctuation that I previously wasn't able to pick up on. Then I decided to incorporate an essay that I wrote in an anthropology class. And the prompt here was, how does culture shape the way we make a living? And you can clearly see that there is an improvement in the way that I synthesize my evidence into the paragraphs. Not that the way I did it here was wrong, but I think we did go over this one week over ways to make the transitions with the sources and evidence more professional, less repetitive, and more like eloquent. And I do believe that I did more of that in the academic argument. Um, Another reason I use this text is because it relates to one of our goals in this class of understanding like cultural perspective that is woven into language. And Um, this essay does cover culture and how much of an influence it can have on the way people live their lives, and the underlying ways in which what we the way we write and the way we think has is interwoven with our culture. And lastly, even though this is one of the first things that we did in this class, I decided to leave it for last. Um, it's the this I believe mini essay. Um, it was probably one of the easier things to write in this class because it wasn't it was a topic that I genuinely enjoyed writing about, and it didn't have to be super structured or follow many guidelines.